We are live with another Bully Ball on the Gold Standard Podcast Network. I'm Jason Aponte, joined as always by Steph Sanchez. Man, that was a rough opening. Sounds like last night was getting the better of me. Steph, how are you though?
I'm okay. I'm okay, man. I'm trying not to let 49ers losses kill my mood anymore. I'm trying this new thing.
I think, like I was just telling you, I think my biggest disappointment was like, man, you know what I really could have done? I could have like wiped out a little bit more of Spider-Man 2. That probably would have been way more enjoying, like fulfilling. But hey, you win some, you lose some. And the 49ers have lost two in a row. They lose on Monday Night Football to primetime Kirk Cousins, 22-17. Is that the final score? I
Yep.
just when it's losses, I just put them out of my mind. But if it's a win, I can probably tell you like off the rip everything that was there. But Steph, I think my initial thoughts are the only positive that I really have in this one is that you can't blame one thing. You blame everything.
Same as last week.
Offense. Yeah, offense, defense, special teams, coaching, decision making, all of it. Blame all of it. We'll break it all down, but there's not one person that is that is responsible for this. It took an entire team to bungle the hit on Monday Night Football against Kirk Cousins, who turned into I don't even know what version of Kirk Cousins. He was so good carving them up. But Steph, what were some of your thoughts in the game?
Yeah, so like after last week's game, I was kind of thinking, yeah, like this was a full team loss and they kept the game close. Very similar last night. The reason that I'm a little more concerned about that now is because, you have the trade deadline approaching and you're seeing all these like little things getting exposed. Exposed may be a strong word, but you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
teams are kind of seeing certain things with the 49ers defense, with the offense now that they're kind of um looking to exploit in their game planning, and there isn't one move you can make that will fix all of that. You can't
Mhm.
snap your finger and fix all of the issues that we are seeing with the 49ers. So, while yes, sure, it does give me some, I guess, positivity knowing that it took the entire team to lose this game. At the same time, that doesn't make me feel better because this is now two games in a row. I thought the game against the Browns was just like a blip. I thought
Mhm.
they were going to come back and make a statement. They were unable to make that statement and they looked the exact same way they did against the Browns. So that to me is concerning. So, yeah, those are my thoughts. Like, I really don't know how they can get out of it now. I don't know how
Mhm.
they even got themselves in this like little rut that they're in, but I don't. Now it's hard for me to see them getting out of it. It was like 2 weeks ago we were talking about like, is this the one of the best offenses we've ever seen with the 49ers? Is this
Mhm.
one of the, like this team is Super Bowl bound? Do they have any flaws? And now look at us. Like, it's crazy how 2 weeks can change, your feelings on a team. But yeah, it's kind of like what Nick Bosa said, that the NFL can humble you and it can humble you quick, right? So that's what we're seeing right now. I don't have any answers, I guess, for how they get out of it, and that's kind of my concern right now.
Well, and then the other thing is, at least last week you can point to, hey, poor weather. Your game plan
Yeah,
changes when Debo
exactly.
Samuel's not there, right? The Cleveland Browns defense is very good. You have none of those things to point to in this game, right? And not that those are any excuses because everything's not going to be perfect, but you're playing in a dome. You had an extra day to game plan without Debo Samuel. Christian McCaffrey with the oblique injury, which everybody's screaming rest him, aside from the fumble, looked like that guy again, right? Like, and he played every single snap because you can't trust any other running back at this point because Elijah Mitchell gets the ball one time, -1 yard. Although, to be fair, the 49ers did not run the ball well in this game. They can't
No,
run to the left side without Trent Williams. To be fair, though, Jalen Moore, his name wasn't being called a lot,
no,
which was fairly good, right? Like, oh, see,
it's
there we go. We're going
that's
positive. Yeah,
positive. Yeah.
100%. George Kittle shows out on prime time as he usually does. I think that's like the safest bet in the world. Anytime that he's on a primetime game, whatever his receiving prop is over. But when you look at this game, you're looking at back-to-back weeks, and the Browns game should have been the wake-up call.
Yeah.
Now I don't know what this is. But also, I wanna also not spread panic or anything like that because the 49ers do have a chance to fix all this, right? And a lot of it is coming from the defensive side. You looked at this defensive line and you thought, hey, this is going to be a historic defensive line. You add Javon Hargrave, Bosa gets the bag. You think Drake Jackson's going to take a step. They even add Randy Gregory. You start to think about all the things that Eric Armstead could do with one-on-ones next to Hargrave, and you start to salivate and think, man, this defense is going to feast. That's not happening. And I had been on the side of, well, check out the pressure rates, and they're still forcing the ball out. Don't give me the PFF pressures this week. I don't care because there were none. As far as I'm concerned, there were none because you get no sacks. Kirk Cousins is back there doing whatever he wants. And then Nick Bosa after the game, I really was like, now I'm kind of concerned because Nick Bosa said, yeah, about the blitz heavy approach. Yeah, we're usually a rush four kind of team, and I'm not sure what we were doing, like going with the blitz, like to those words, not exact words, but to those words, which implies to me that everybody isn't on the same page with the defense. And the defense was the one thing that I think we honestly could set our watch to is, man, this is going to be a historic pass rush. This defense is going to be clamps.
Yeah.
And that's the part that makes this frustrating. But one more thing before I pass it to you, because I know I'm talking too much. So many fluky things happened in this game, and it was weird, right? The fumble in the red zone. Charvarius Ward with the interception that gets ripped away from him by Addison, which was a horrific blitz call by Wilkes, right there at the end of the half. Those are like fluky things, but Steph, you can't win football games when you turn the ball over 3 times and you can't get off the field on third down. You're never going to beat anybody that way.
Is the McCaffrey thing a fluke though? Because it's now been in 3 games. He's done it twice, both in the red zone. That's
Can
kind
you
of
but
it's
can
a
you
little
complain about him? Can you complain
nah,
about him?
nah. I
Really?
mean,
Yeah,
I'm not
that's the
I'm not
thing, right?
complaining, but
Right, right.
that doesn't mean I can't like point to a play and be like,
Yeah,
"Yo, Christian, like
yeah.
this was bad." And he knows it was
Well,
bad. Like he feels like he cost him the game. I don't believe that.
right.
But I mean, Christian, tighten up the ball
He
just a little bit, all
he
right?
he would have got his hands on it if Aaron Banks didn't kick it away from him. Like that was just, what's funny
Well,
is,
yeah, that so
right.
that was fluky. The not
Yeah.
getting it, I guess, after
hmm
fumbling was
So
maybe a
the
little bit fluky, but
so after you see Kirk throw the first interception, you start to think, here we go, we're rolling. Like, yeah, this is it. We
right.
got him. We got primetime Kirk, and they're moving the ball and they get into the red zone, and then that happens. Which, by the way, that celebration by the Vikings was hilarious. The limbo, that was so good. I
Yeah.
love a good celebration, even if it's at a team's expense. But that's when things start to feel weird. And then what do the Vikings do after that fumble? They don't go down for 3, they go right down the field and they score.
Mhm.
And you just say, well, okay, maybe they need to make adjustments. But all night it looked like Kirk was hitting wide open receivers, like not tight window throws, not guys that were contested catches. It was literally guys running wide open. Like I kept thinking, because you don't get to see the angle. Like when the ball leaves the screen, then you get to kind of see what's going on, but you can't see what they're playing. And I'm just like, why are guys wide open? And that's why you have to wait for the all
Mhm.
22 to see all that stuff. And it's just, I didn't understand why it continued to happen. That was my concern. And then it turns the conversation to Steve Wilkes, Steph.
Yeah, exactly. It just seemed like there was so much space in the back end for the Vikings receivers to work with. 453 yards of offense allowed. I'm pretty sure I saw Kirk Cousins make a sandwich, like in the backfield. I don't know if you saw that, Jay, but no
Yeah.
pass rush at all. They're now 27th in sack percentage in the NFL. That's horrible. On 45 dropbacks, you telling me you couldn't get one sack,
Yep.
not even one? And you're right, Jay. Like it didn't even feel like there was one close enough to like fluster Kirk Cousins to get him to make a mistake, like aside from just the one interception that we saw. And, I'm trying to think back. I don't even know if that was really caused by any sort of pressure. And so now, like, we're seeing Steve Wilkes kind of go into this, I don't want to say panic mode, but it's like, well, we're not getting anything rushing forward. So let me just start blitzing now. And they're still not getting home. Like that's a real concern for me. And you're seeing them blitz on a 3rd and 6 with 16 seconds left in the half to give up a 16-yard touchdown. Kyle said he didn't like the result of that. Thank you, Kyle. I also did not like the result of that. And everyone is saying, like, the 49ers just need to get another pass rusher. We need another corner. Bring in Brian Burns. Bring in Patrick Surtain. Sir, I mean, certainly those guys would help. But this defensive line has Nick Bosa, it has
Yeah.
Javon Hargrave, it has Eric Armstead, Clinton Farrell, and they just traded for Randy Gregory. What was this defensive line doing last season, Jay? What was this defensive line doing last season? Largely the same like defense altogether. If aside from Javon Hargrave, who was an upgrade, aside from Isaiah Oliver, who notches below what we had at nickel last year, but largely the same defense. Why does it look so different this year? What would D'Amico Ryans be doing with this exact same defensive line?
Hmm.
Do
Hmm.
you think they would be like this low in sacks this year if D'Amico Ryans was still here? Because I want to say no.
And
That's
a
your
lot of people will
problem.
say a lot of people will say don't compare, but how can you not compare?
Yeah.
Because with D'Amico, it looked like in the beginning, if there were struggles, there was an answer. Always, like at halftime, there was an answer.
Yeah.
And for much of this game, it felt like Wilkes was scrambling and kind of just saying, well, let's just try this, let's just try this. It never was really definitive. And that I think is the part that's a little concerning. I don't know what the answer is, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you, hey, this is what they should be doing. Possibly man coverage. Haven't really got to dig into the tape because I've been running around this morning. And I really want to take a look and see that. But it's it's hard to figure out what's going on. But what I do know, and what anybody knows, and you don't have to know concepts on film, is it's not working. It's not
Yeah.
working. And so that's all you really need to know. You don't need to know concepts. You don't need to be a defensive genius and everything. You know it's not working. Your eyes are telling you the story that it's not working. When Kirk Cousins is there without Justin Jefferson, without any semblance of a run game, and he's able to get the ball to Jordan Addison, who's a baller, by the way. Congratulations on
I
beating me
mean,
this week, Steph, in our dynasty league, by the way.
I'm not
Uh,
I'm not too happy about the way that I won with
because you have
Addison
Jordan
going.
Addison. Yeah, because you had Jordan Addison. I
Of
looked up and I
all
was like,
weeks, man, of all
I looked up, I
weeks.
was like, how did I lose by 30? I was like, aha, that'll do it. But when you look at this game and you look at Madison's not able to run the ball very well. When you look at Akers is trying to find his way into, there's no sort of running game. I mean, Dalton Risner was starting at guard as a backup. No Justin Jefferson, just Jordan Addison. TJ Hawkinson's running wide open. Like for me, it's like, man, what if Justin Jefferson played in this game? What would you have been able to do? Like, yeah. So these these things, all of these things that I mentioned, even without Debo Samuel, even without Trent Williams, you expected this team to game plan all week with an extra day, and this felt like a get right spot. No
Yeah.
weather concerns in the dome, primetime Kirk, all of those things. None of it came to fruition, and it all kind of went bad right after the field, the not the field goal, the fumble, and nobody really had a good game. It felt like I really can't point to people and say, well, at least he had a good game. Kiddo had a good game. Kiddo had a good game. He was, again, it's prime time. You can set your watch to that, but Fred Warner said something that was really, really, really telling. It seems like when the 49ers are up, everything's lovely. Like
Mhm.
that's it. Like when they start
Yeah.
avalanching them, right? Like that's kind of what we thought would have happened if they score that touchdown. Like if they score that touchdown right when they get the turnover and they're up 7-0, and you're putting Kirk in a position where you got to throw the ball, maybe this thing avalanches the way that you want, right? Because you start. But Fred Warner said something after the game that was very telling. Rob, if you could pull up the video so we could hear his exact words, so I don't have to paraphrase or misquote him. But that
Right
felt
now with
like the
us is
turning
we got to
point.
find ways
Yeah.
to win the grimy games, the ones that it's not looking great, and find a way. Obviously we can win 30-10, but what do we? Who are we, and what are we going to do when we're down and we got to come back and win a game?
And that's the thing. This league is parity driven.
Mhm.
There's a lot of great minds that can game plan, even when they're missing people. You take no one for granted. But when things are going right, you're dancing around, everything's cool. And it seems like these games that are being played against the Browns and the Vikings, these type of games, these are the games you're going to be in the postseason.
Yeah.
And now you've got the Cincinnati Bengals this week coming off of a bye, which now that means T. Higgins is back. And if you thought that position group and that personnel group and wide receivers and weapons gave the 49ers fits for the Vikings, well, here comes Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Joe Mixon. Okay. So you've got to figure this out quickly, especially on a short week. Then you get a bye week. But then you start to look around, right? The Baltimore Ravens on Christmas feels like a really nasty game right now because Lamar Jackson is playing out of his mind. I don't know if anybody saw it. They beat the brakes off of the Lions. They looked incredible. Lamar looked like the MVP. And then the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday night looked like that team that they were last year. And then what do? They go out and they add an all-pro safety, Kevin Byard, for peanuts. So it's not an end-all be-all sky is falling thing. But week to week, when you start looking around, you're looking around now at teams that are forming into shape. And yet, maybe after 7 weeks, we really don't know what this 49ers team is fully.
No, I have no idea what team is going to show up on Sunday when they have to play the Bengals. I mean, the one thing that's good, they'll be at home. Maybe that'll help. But I'm not feeling great about it just because I don't know how they get out of it. Like we've been saying, I don't think we have the answers. I thought going back to some of the quotes from the game, Kyle Shanahan said, like, we didn't have any sacks today. When you go against a quarterback like that, you've got to make him uncomfortable. And he didn't look too uncomfortable. It kind of feels like you were pointing out some of the quotes to start the show, talking about Steve Wilkes and I guess like the defense in general and how it feels like things aren't on the same page with everybody. But I agree, like it's not just a one unit thing. The defense did give up 22 points. That is surmountable. Like you should be able to score over 22 points. This 49ers offense has been able to do it many times this year. So for 2 games in a row now, though, they've been held to 17 points. So some of the things that we saw, like run blocking, not it. And we mentioned that too. 18 pressures given up. Colton McKivitz gave up 6 of them. Purdy, 2 interceptions. A McCaffrey fumble. No catches for Ayuk in the second half. I don't know if I have long-term concerns about the offense just because, okay, sure, Debo was out. I'm sure, while I would still expect and hope that they would be able to put points up on the board even without him. Let's see what it looks like when he's back, I guess. But they're not going to have him back next week against the Bengals, so they're going to have to find a way to score points. Brock Purdy, I think we were waiting for the shoe to drop. We knew it would eventually drop on Purdy. He was eventually going to have a bad game. We saw it against Cleveland. Now it's 2 games in a row, which I don't think like the full game was bad for Purdy against this Vikings team. It really wasn't.
He actually made some great throws, honestly, Steph.
Yeah.
And the 2 interceptions are going to be what everybody like focuses on because it happened in crunch time. But aside from that, he was actually really good. He missed 1 throw, I believe, to Kittle. But other than that, he was operating the offense. They were moving the ball, but they weren't scoring.
But remember, Jay, like a lot of the concerns or like the questions that we hadn't had answered yet on Purdy was like, how could he handle adversity? How could he handle when he's down, when he doesn't have all his playmakers? And I think we saw that, right? Like, I don't know if this is the definitive answer, but for now, this is the only answer that we have. 2 interceptions in the fourth quarter, right? Like, that's not great, obviously. So, I mean, hopefully he can bounce back. Like, the book isn't final. The book isn't completely written on Brock Purdy. That's the good thing. He's still a very young quarterback. But he has to figure something out too. I almost worry that he feels like he has to put the team on his back. And like when you get into that, I don't know. Maybe he's not that kind of guy. I don't know. We still don't know that. I just hope that's not the case. But yeah, hopefully we see a more balanced team against the Bengals because they're going to need both sides of the ball to really come through in that game if they have any chance of winning.
Yeah, and sure enough, we're speaking about offensive line. Buckle up, Cole McKivitz. Here comes Trey Hendrickson. There's so many great edge rushers in this league, and it just never stops, right? But I did want to talk about Brock Purdy at least a little bit more like at length because now after these 2 games, there are the sweeping statements when still, and I think a lot of people rush to judgment instead of using information and gathering information. There's no way to say that Brock Purdy is this guy right now or like he can't handle it. Why can't he improve with more reps? But I think it's because of what you saw early on from him. There is still growth to be had. This is the NFL. Teams adjust, you adjust back. He can still grow. This isn't like a doomsday scenario to where you're like, oh my God, I don't know if Brock is the guy. Oh my God. He's still young. He's still in his teens, starting games. Just because he looked the part early on doesn't mean that he's a finished product by any means. This is a trend after 2 games, but you can stop the trend next week and you can continue to build off that, right? That's the part that I don't really understand because, and I hate to bring this back up, but I feel that we all wanted Trey Lance to play, to work through and get experience and get better, but yet we have to treat Brock Purdy as a finished product and not apply the same logic to his growth. And he still can grow. He's still going to make mistakes. Just because he didn't early on in the season didn't mean that he was never going to. But just this rough patch right here with these 2 games, it doesn't mean that he's not the guy, he's not prepared, or he's scuffling and losing it. There's still room for growth with Brock Purdy, and I think we've lost sight of that because of how excited we were with him early on and how well he played. It's going to happen. Teams are going to identify things that they want to use against you, and you still have to be able to adjust back. So it's on Brock to do that. But this idea that Brock Purdy is now a finished product and, oh my God, the sky's falling. Oh, we don't have a guy anymore. Took 2 games for that to happen? Took 2 games for that to happen? Jeff Kerr says Brock Purdy career trailing in the fourth quarter, 17.1 passer rating. That's probably 2 quarters at this point, right? Like it's these last 2 and what, like the Oakland game, which they won, the Vegas game, which they won.
Yep.
So it's still a small sample size. But with that small sample size, because you were so impressed, it rushed people to deem him a finished product. And now you have to see the growth, which is still, it still can happen. So the rush to judgment on Brock Purdy has been very interesting, and the way he's been evaluated has been fascinating because people think he's a finished product, and now he can't improve, and now the sky's falling for some people, not everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I have short-term concerns. I don't have long-term concerns with Brock Purdy. The short-term concern, I think, is a symptom of the bigger problem that I'm seeing with the 49ers in general. Like, it's not just Brock Purdy. I think everyone on the team is kind of in this rut, as I've mentioned, and I just don't see how they get out of it. Someone's going to need to get out of it. I don't think Brock Purdy's really in it. Like, it's not like he's been stuck in the mud these last 2
Right.
games. Like, he's
Right.
had some really good throws in there. He's had some really good some good plays. I like that he used his legs. But yeah, I mean, just have to limit those mistakes. What's funny is that like those turnover worthy throws have always been there.
They have.
Like they just hadn't been interceptions yet. So the shoe was gonna drop, and we're just seeing it now. And just like, maybe those weren't interceptions in previous games, maybe those won't be interceptions in future games too. I don't know, but I have to imagine that teams are seeing those things and they'll just simply be a little more prepared for it in the future. So that's on Purdy to kind of, see what risks are worth taking and which ones maybe just aren't.
Steph, I'm going to ask you a question, and this is going to be a tough question. Okay. This is it. Like, this is hard hitting stuff right here that I'm about to ask you. Can you spell Wilkes for me?
I sure can. Can everyone else?
Can you spell it for everyone?
Everyone, yes. Wilks.
There
Not
is no
ES.
E. There's no E. Good God. The amount of tweets that were flying on a misspelled name. Guys, come on. This is so easy, man. Please. I just wanted to lighten
It
it
was
up real
funny
quick.
because like everyone, it was like all angry tweets about
Right.
Wilks, but
It's
it's
all
like they couldn't
caps.
even spell. They couldn't even spell.
It's all
his name
caps.
right.
Get Wilkes out of here. Or like, I even saw people like, get Wilkins out of here. Like Dominique Wilkins. Like what? Like
Not
guys, like
Wilkins.
what are
Not
we
Wilkins,
doing?
man.
Keith Murphy with the super chat. We paid for Garrett and Watt production. We need Mo. All right.
It's true.
So yesterday, Nick Bosa has some provocative photos come out. Happy birthday, Nick Bosa, by the way. Steph, I think it's time that we, after 7 weeks, have to have the discussion. Has Nick Bosa underwhelmed to start the season?
Yeah, he is underwhelmed. I think the entire defensive line has underwhelmed, and I think that's like the overarching problem with Nick Bosa also underwhelming. But of course, he just got his big contract. He is the biggest name on that defensive line. You have guys like JJ Watt who are making plays and timely plays at that for their team every single game. And you got guys like Mason Crosby out there, Miles Garrett as well is on a tear. Parsons here and there. And we're just not seeing that from Nick Bosa this season. This time last year, he had 7 sacks.
Mhm.
He had 2.5, now. And that's so weird, right? Like we keep talking about he's getting pressures. Like he had 6 pressures last night. But whatever is happening with the defensive line with Bosa, it's not working. And so I don't know. A lot of people are saying, oh, it's because he wasn't with the team in the offseason. I don't know, because it's not just Bosa looking bad. The guys who were there all offseason really have underproduced as well. But of course, with the big contract that he just got, he got a huge bag. He's getting quarterback money. The eyes are going to be on Bosa, of course, and that's fair. So yeah, we are expecting more out of him, and at some point we're going to have to see it, or people are just going to continue to, come after him after these games.
The thing is there's reasons for this sometimes, right? You're sending 4 against 7 in max protect, which means you've got 7 on the back end, and you're still not covering. So again, schematically, this defense is not performing, right? It's a numbers game. 7 on 4, you're not going to get there, right? You're just not going to get there. At the same time, and this is to Keith's point, TJ Watt and Miles Garrett, you don't think they ever see that kind of attention? Miles Garrett was the best football player in the world this weekend. I don't know if anybody got a chance to watch the Browns against the Colts. This man was jumping over people, blocking field goals, causing sacks and touchdowns in the end zone, like wrecking the game. Miles Garrett has been the defensive player of the year so far. He has. And that's what you expected from Bosa, at least in that discussion. It's sometimes you can point to it and say, listen, schematically, they're chipping him, they're sending 2 and 3, they've got 7 on 4 is wrong. Part of this has to do with the way that Steve Wilks is attacking. Part of it definitely does. But you have to be able to overcome that. And I believe Nick Bosa spoke to that and said, I had a couple of chances to take over this game. I just didn't do it. That's not what you want to hear. It's not underwhelming, but people are automatically going. I mean, not that it's not underwhelming. Let me take that back. When you get paid like that, people are going to look at you immediately. Like, go do it.
Mhm.
Right? TJ Watt got the bag. Remember, he was out all training camp, came back, first game, 3 sacks or something like that. Like, he just went crazy when that happened with him. It's still something that can change. Absolutely can change. Again, this isn't doom and gloom like for the rest of the season. This is just evaluating through 7 weeks. But yes, it just hasn't been what we expected from the entire defensive line, and in particular Nick Bosa, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what needs to change there. I don't want to say like too much about it, and then like my words come back to bite me later. But
Well,
obviously, like,
no, look, all right. This is how you do it, Steph. You just throw some generic stuff out, right? And this is what I've been seeing, right? Well, they got to
well,
run
I
more
have
stunts,
specific thoughts. I
right?
don't have
They got to
generic thoughts in my head.
no. Well, what I'm just saying, like, you got to run more stunts. Oh, okay. So what does that entail? How does that work? Like, I love the answers that are like given. Run more stunts, or blitz less, but send 2 guys from this side. Like, it's not all of that all the time. Like when you look and you
Yeah.
see 7 on 4, I think Dante Whitner talked about it on NBC after the game. He said that with Vic Fangio, if they had a max protect and they were sending 4, they would actually just send 3 and drop everyone else and cover everyone.
Mhm.
Why isn't that happening like right now, especially when you have the advantage on the other side? Okay, you're not getting pass rush, but you're not going to be able to throw the ball to anybody. And he said, especially when it's a non-mobile quarterback like Kirk Cousins. That's exactly how you do it. You won't be able to do that if it's Lamar, because Lamar will be able to just, bolt out and really beat you with his legs. But Kirk's not trying to do that, and you can still rally to the ball. There's so many questions about the defense and how they're moving and how they're actually attacking. It just hasn't worked to a point where they're being used to their strengths. And that's the frustrating part, because again, we all thought that the 49ers defense was the thing that we could just like set our watch to and just
And
say, listen, we don't got to worry about that.
I do also want to say, like, yeah, the 49ers have lost 2 games in a row. there's a lot of finger pointing and all that, and we're looking at the defensive line. The defensive line has been underwhelming all season, even when they
Yes.
were winning. So,
Yeah.
like, just, reminding people that this isn't just a 2-game thing now. It's a game in which, the offense is also not putting up points, and, your defense is not getting to the quarterback. So, that's an issue if it persists, which, based on having been an issue in previous weeks, aside from maybe that Cowboys game that was like awesome. Like, I thought that was a great game for the defense all around, all 4 quarters. But aside from that, like, it's an issue, and I don't know if it can be fixed again, like with just one player or anything like that. But Jay, I do want to ask you, because I
Hmm.
see a lot of people pointing it out. Um, I guess the 49ers have a trend of dropping some games in October. Like,
Hmm.
this is the time of the year that they do
Hmm.
it. Last year was the Falcons, and then they played the Chiefs. Those are, aside from like the Falcons game, which there were some injuries in that one. The Chiefs game, like, it makes a little more sense, but still, now we're kind of seeing 2 games dropped once again. This time to, teams with bad records, so it leaves a bad taste in your mouth. But is this just an October thing? Is this just this team kind of having lapses in play and they're going to figure it out? Or is this like a long-term thing? Because I'm sure we thought it would be a long-term thing around this time last year when we were talking about the Chiefs game and all that stuff, and they lost to the Falcons. So how should we compartmentalize? That's a good word.
Oh yeah. Oh
Did
yeah.
I use it
Oh
right?
yeah.
I think I
Oh
did.
yeah. Oh yeah. Um,
Compartmentalize this loss, this
I'm
two
so
losing.
glad that you said it correctly because I would never try to pronounce it. I would have never been able to get that all stuff. Look, if you want some positivity, if you want something to hang your hat on, right, and you kind of want to feel a little bit better about, historically under Kyle Shanahan, this team has peaked later in the season. We're not used to them getting out to a 5-0 record where they're completely dominant because even in 2019, they were winning games, but they didn't feel like a finished product. Like they weren't like a team that was a well-oiled machine, right? Like that's what we kind of saw the first 5 weeks. And then they figured it out later in the season. You go back to the last 2 times that they went to the NFC Championship game, figured it out at the end of the season. The adjustments are made, right? But I think what everybody is a little bit nervous about is, well, that's not the defensive coordinator that was there because D'Amico just seemed to get better as the season went on, and especially again covering up for Ambry Thomas and adjusting the scheme to a point where you're not putting the youngster in a bad spot and even giving him confidence because he played well. So you can point to historical data under Kyle Shanahan and say this team peaks later on. And if you don't believe in Steve Wilks, I want to say this: in 2019, the defensive coordinator was Robert Saleh. Last year was D'Amico Ryans. This year was Steve Wilks. All of those things can be fixed. I don't know how they fix it. I don't know what's the secret sauce, but you can still look at this team and say, well, at least they've done it before and shown. Now, the hesitance that a lot of people have is how crucial it is to get home field. And when you kick away a game that you think you should have won against the Vikings, and you probably kick away one against Cleveland, and now look, the Philadelphia Eagles lost to the Jets, but now look, the Eagles look like they're rounding into shape right now, and they're getting reinforcements. Wouldn't be shocked if they not done at the trade deadline. Shout out to Howie Roseman, man. Stop getting better. I can't stand it, man. All they ever do is just get better. But the race for the number 1 seed, and there's many games that you could point to last year and say, well, that's the one that cost them. That's the one that cost them. Do you want to have to go to Philly? Especially with the way that they're not really performing in closer games right now, that's not a recipe for success. So while maybe you should be concerned about that, I do think there is still historical data with Kyle Shanahan that this team peaks at the end of the year and gets hot.
Yeah, and Rob just put up the 49ers are 11-17 in October under Kyle Shanahan. So that does look like a trend. I do want to say, like, that's probably skewed by, a couple of, pretty bad seasons, but not great. But at the same time, we should feel good that this team, one, is still clearly a playoff team, and
Yep.
two, they are going to figure it out. But yeah, Jay, you mentioned the biggest concern with that is that there are some really good teams that were also good last year, who are not having, the same back-to-back, lost stretch that the 49ers are seeing right now. And we saw last year how the slow start of the 49ers really hurt them in the end when they did have to, travel for the playoffs, when they did have to go to Philly. And the way it's looking right now, like they're not getting the number one seed. The way it's looking right now, I'm not
Right.
making any definitive statements, but
Well, they at least get to play the Eagles.
yeah.
That can really help, right? Like that can really really help. Like if you're able to win in Philly, and that can be, if you're still close,
I
they
mean,
still have a chance to play Philly. But you have
yeah.
to start winning games now. Like you can't drop a third one now to the Bengals.
And the Eagles do have like a tough schedule on
Hmm.
tap here. But as you
Hmm.
mentioned, Jay, they're also getting better. They look like they're getting into shape. They're making moves at the deadline that are helping them. And they had a fantastic draft, man. Like
Jalen Carter,
those
why did you let
guys
them?
those guys are making impact plays for them this early in the season already. Can you imagine when they have like a full season of improving and all these things? So I am C for concerned about the
See for
Philadelphia
concern.
Eagles for sure. And yeah, the 49ers can't waste any time. Like I thought that was the sentiment going into the season, right? Like I thought they were like so focused in getting to the Super Bowl, and every game was going to be important in getting there. And now we've seen them drop two, so I don't know what's happening, right? And I know Fred Warner, one of the things he said is he wants them to improve the mental toughness, right? And obviously, when you're in these tough games and these ugly games, you have to be able to still like find a way to win. You can't just stay in that mode and in that rut. I don't know. Rut is the word of the day for me.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, like they have to find a way to get out of it, to respond and to answer. And so it's not going to get easier. It's not going to get easier against the Bengals, but they have to find a way to do it.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? And then I don't want to bring this up either, but Seattle is playing a lot better as well too. And Devin Witherspoon is a dog. He is a dog at corner. And sure enough, you look at games that you're like, well, the team, right now, 49er fans, and I mean, I don't think the 49ers, are doing this themselves, but 49er fans, we're going to stop looking at teams and saying that's an easy win. You have to now. Cincinnati this week, bye week, Jacksonville. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not good either. Then you got the Ravens. Then you got Seattle twice on Thanksgiving. Philadelphia. There are no more gimmies on this schedule. None. I don't want to hear we're gonna blow them out. I'm not worried. Why are you guys hyping up? No, 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 no. Done with that. Done with all of that. Done with all of it. Unless this team that you're about to face is absolutely decimated with injuries and they're not playing any one of their starters, even maybe I probably would caution against it. But yeah, that's over with. There are no more gimmies for this team. Now, can that change? Sure. But the 49ers have to show you that first before you start walking into games and saying, well, they got this team, they got that team. And here's a stat that Rob just put up. 49ers have lost 36 straight games, playoffs included, when trailing by 8 plus at any time in the fourth quarter since rallying from 14 down to beat the Rams 22-21 under Chip Kelly. I think that was Cap's last game. That tied with the Raiders for the second active losing streak, longest active losing streak when down 8. The Panthers are at 45. So the way to talk about this one is that's not all Kyle Shanahan,
No.
but we had talked about this, right? What are the ways that the 49ers can lose? And you and I kind of were pretty bullish on the idea, well, this team's not going to be down 10 points. How are they going to be down? I mean, unless they are literally fumbling the football, not playing well, like that's the way. And then it happens, and then yet you still have to scratch and claw and you don't get it done. 49ers fall to 0-36 under Kyle Shanahan when trailing by 8 points. That's a Kyle stat in fourth quarter or regular season or playoffs. Niners have lost 37 straight, all in that scenario. Only the Panthers have a longer streak at 45.
And
Um,
that's a large sample
oh yeah,
size.
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I think
So
so. I think part of that, not to deflect it off of Kyle Shanahan, because
mhm.
I clearly he has some blame in that. But I think part of that is having like the quarterback, right? Like you don't have a quarterback who can
Hoyer,
like yeah, you didn't have a
Bethard,
quarterback who can like exactly like finish those games for you.
Mullins.
Um you're hoping that Brock Purdy could be that guy, right?
Yeah.
Eventually at some point. So that's bad, but hopefully that improves. But that's a concern, right? That's the fair concern with this team is like, can they be a team that can come back? Can they face adversity and be able to come back? Could they play terribly and be able to come back? Can they do it? No, we've seen that they haven't so far. Uh, of course, unless maybe their defense can hold the opposing offense, to like 10 or something like that. But I don't know. The
Read this
offense
one,
should
Steph.
like I said, the offense should be able to surmount 22 points. All right, this latest tweet that Rob put up. Obviously a small sample size, but among the 27 quarterbacks with 15 or more pass attempts this season, when losing in fourth quarter, 49ers Brock Purdy ranks last with a 16.7 passer rating. Jimmy Garoppolo is actually fourth best at 102.2. What is
And he
happening? I don't like
and
this.
and the thing is Jimmy has more pass attempts because they've been losing almost every fourth quarter. This is a 2-game sample size though, Brock. Um
Yes,
and how
that's
much again,
true.
and to give context to this stat, fourth best 102, trailing might mean that they're down 17 points. So they're just giving everything up underneath, and Jimmy's just hitting
Yeah,
his
that's true.
throws, right? Like, that's
Yeah,
not
that's
like
true.
this stat right here deserves context because it's not like Jimmy Garoppolo is being Captain Comeback for the Raiders. He's just completing passes when the defense is probably saying, hey, man, we got this game locked up. Go ahead, throw your little 3-yard passes. It's cool. We don't care. And we'll just rally and tackle you. Obviously, with the small sample size, because it's 2 games, that's a bit worrisome. But again, this is kind of what we were asking about Brock Purdy because this is the only thing we haven't seen from him aside
Hmm.
from that Raiders game. So, um, the one thing you can look around when you look at the hierarchy of the NFC, because, like, don't get it twisted, the 49ers are still like at the top. I don't know if today in week 7 you can put them number 1. I think it's the Philadelphia Eagles at this point. But the Philadelphia Eagles can beat you however you want. You want a slugfest, you want a blowout, you want us to come back, they can do that. And they've proven it over and over. And that is kind of what the 49ers have to show because you're not going to blow everyone else. You're not going to like run through everybody. It's just not how this league works. No matter how good you are, the Kansas City Chiefs can struggle with somebody and they might pull out the win, but wins are wins. You got to find a way to win the game when you're not blowing people out. So, yeah, Steph, 42 minutes. I'm tired. Um, this one, like, remember what we talked about, in the first few weeks? We were just like, sometimes it's hard to talk about this team. Well, it's not this week. Yeah, this week is going to be brutal. Based on the amount of panic that I've seen
Yeah.
on Twitter, the sweeping statements about this team and where they're going, the sweeping statements about Brock Purdy, the discourse has now changed from, well, I don't even know if this team is a Super Bowl team to, well, he's not the guy. I don't think all of those things should be discussed just yet. But if we do know anything about 49ers Twitter, it will be. Sky's falling. Everything is bad.
They will
I want to
panic.
make sure that Steph and I are on the record. This loss sucked. There was a complete team loss. It's disappointing, but the sky's not falling. This team was going to lose games. You just didn't expect to lose them to them. But now it's up to them to course correct, and they have to do it on a short week against a Bengals team coming off a bye. See this for sure.
I don't feel confident, but yeah, I mean, they got to do it. It is
Look,
their job to find the answers, not mine.
right.
So
Lucky 8787. If Niners lose to the Bengals, locker room is going to explode. I just wanted to make sure that we get on record because people often say that I'm too negative, whatever. I'm chastising. I'm actually trying to keep a level head and trying to be like objective in terms of that. And Rob, if you don't get that out of the private chat, like delete that right now. Honestly, about what he put. Check it out, stuff. You can look at it. Rob
I'll
says, all right,
say it. Yeah, he said Sam Darnold watch. And what's funny about that is I literally saw someone on Twitter like mention Sam Darnold and him having a cannon of an arm and Brock Purdy just doesn't have the arm and all these things. So I closed Twitter like immediately after that because I'm like, no, we are not doing this. We are not bringing Sam Darnold into this conversation. No. is not happening. Brock Purdy needs to improve in those moments. Yes. Sam Darnold, no, get him away. Like, I'm like holding up like my crucifix right now, just like don't say his name. No,
No,
Sam Darnold.
I don't have answers, but here's the answer. Sam Darnold is not going to save this fucking team. Sorry, but bleep it
I
out,
don't
Rob.
have the answers, but here's my answer.
But
Sam
here's this
Darnold is
answer.
not the
Here's
answer.
this answer. And bleep it out, Rob. I'm sorry for our people watching with kids as well too. Oh, goodness gracious. All right, Steph. 45 minutes. I think this is a perfect place to end this. Guys, make sure that you like this video, subscribe to the Gold Standard Podcast Network YouTube channel. Make sure you follow Steph on Twitter at Steph49K. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Jason Aponte2103. Go to our website, goldstandardniners.com. And guys, look, it's frustrating. You thought this was a win. We all did. It's the NFL. There's going to be adversity. The team is not cooked, but they've got to turn it around quickly. That's the last thing I want to say before we go. So for Steph, for Jay, thanks for tuning in. We're out of here.
Peace.